So I had coffee with a founder, a business owner, successful business. They're doing really well. They've been around for decades.
Yeah.
And one of the things he told me was he was telling me about some of the challenges. We were just kind of going back and forth. And he said, I got this one employee who's performing at an okay level, but they're not a fit from a culture standpoint. Like they're not showing up, living the core values, things like that.
Sure.
So he had to have a difficult conversation when it came to that. He's got another employee that is aligned culturally, but from a performance standpoint, it's not that she's not performing, it's just a newer role and they're not sure how to measure success or how to go about coaching her.
Sure.
So there's a little bit of a challenge there. And I just started thinking about it and I'm like, and I even think about my own team and the businesses and the clients that we work with. And it's like, everything just goes back eventually to how you show up from a leadership standpoint. And you said it right before we went on air. It's even if you don't have a team, you at least got one person that you're always leading, which is yourself.
Right.
So it all comes back to how you lead yourself and how you lead others. And that's why I'm excited to have Rick back on the show for round 2, who's the founder of RPC Leadership Associates. Rick, welcome to the show. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great, Alex. I'm feeling great.
We had we had a first episode that went amazing. We had a second episode that went, I think, even better. And then somehow that got lost in translation or files. I have no clue.
You keep upgrading the show here. So.
This is, and I was telling you, Rick, before the show, this is our last, well, actually we got one more episode, but today is our last day filming in this current studio. And then we're upgrading to a room that's a little bit over double the size here now. We can get more creative with the sets and the setup. And for our clients coming in doing their podcasts, it's going to be really, really cool. So if you hang around to the end of this episode, I'm going to have Rick do an honest assessment of my leadership, how I'm showing up, and maybe do a little bit of business coaching on the fly with one of the new business units that we have here, Podcast Builders. I don't know how this is going to go. I'm a little nervous for it. Maybe it's going to go off the rails. We'll see.
That's the fun part.
It's the fun part. But if you hang around to the end, we're gonna go through this. So before we get into the leading yourself and how you show up as a leader for your team and really growing a business that can eventually run and grow without the leader or the CEO being in the midst of every single thing in the weeds every day, I want to ask your opinion on this. I just saw recently, it was a picture of the Salesforce CEO. And it was a quote that said, Salesforce now regrets replacing humans with AI after laying off 4,000 experienced employees. The company is now facing trust and reliability issues with AI. What do you think about that? What's your reaction there?
Well, it's interesting because I reacted to that in LinkedIn. And I think
that's where I got it from, actually.
I reposted it and I just wrote 2 words, unintended consequences. And it's probably the most reacted to repost that I've ever had in the last 2 years.
Is that right?
So obviously those 2 words resonated with people, and that's the challenge with jumping onto technology too quick. It's the challenge with letting government run things. The only thing that government is good at is creating unintended consequences.
Yeah.
And I'm not anti-government by any stretch, but, we just have to be realistic about, what they run and, what they don't.
Right. Or shouldn't.
But this idea of AI, the tech sector alone is laying off populations of small cities, all under the cover of AI. And I think this post says a lot in just a very few amount of words that, leaders have a lot of responsibilities, but leaders also, one of them is to, if they're doing it right, is to play the long game. But to play the long game, you have to have the good short game, right? And so being able to look ahead, and part of having that good short game and long game is to be able to see the future, kind of like, net present value of some future investment. I've been accused over my career of having a crystal ball. I don't, but I spend a lot of time looking at what can happen. If I make this decision today, how does it play out? Kind of like a chess game. And if you look at my website, chess, you can see the influence of chess on the way I think, right? I can play 3 or 4 to 5 moves ahead. And so the decisions I make today, I can almost predict how it's going to land 2 years from now.
What allows you to do that?
I read a lot. I learn a lot, and I don't just read for content. I apply understanding in context. I don't just read an article. I don't just go to a conference and take notes and ideas. How does this affect my business? And how does this line up with my strategy, my vision, my mission, my strategy, and where I want to take it? So I don't take it as information. We have too much information, right? And good leaders, because they're not involved in the day-to-day, gives themselves time to say, how do I carve out some time to say, how is AI going to affect my business and where I want to take the business, right?
But how are you deciphering all this information in terms of, hey, I think this is what's going to stick, what's going to stay, what business owners should be focused on? Because this is what you do for a living. You're a business coach. You lead. You help others increase their leadership game and all this type of stuff. And that's why you're sitting in the chair. But how do you decipher? Because I think we are at an inflection point right now. To your point, in Salesforce, it looks like just experienced this, but I think a lot of companies are. Yep. We have too in our own way, which is, when do we use AI versus when do we not? It's like, yes, it's part looking into the future and knowing what's coming and preparing for it, but also not killing what's working today.
Sure. Well, what is your strategy for growth, right? That's where it all starts, right? AI for the sake of AI buys you nothing, right?
Right.
It's technology for technology's sake.
Yeah.
Social media, why do we use social media? I mean, you do it. I mean, that's what you do for clients. It's not the fact that you're on, 5 different platforms. It's how you're using those 5 different platforms to grow your business.
Right.
So instead of Facebook, Instagram, X, Pinterest, LinkedIn, now you've got Copilot, ChatGPT, Genesis, Claude, and Grok. Right? It's the same idea. How do those all fit into your business strategy, not into your tech strategy, maybe it's your business strategy?
Maybe it's Google, AltaVista, Yahoo. Maybe that's even a better comparison.
Yeah.
Because they're, in a ways, we're getting content from there. We're searching through there. They're showing up in terms of search results from the content that it's seen online, which is why it's more important now to get good content out there than ever. But it still goes back to, how do you know when to pivot, when to, how are you good at calling these shots?
What's the difference between a trend and a fad?
Right.
Right. Well, you don't. That's the kind of the tricky part, the art of leadership, right? Every business plan on the planet is based on a set of assumptions and conditions, right? Because nobody knows the future 100%.
Except for you, who has the crystal ball, obviously.
Right. Well, apparently I do.
So what the hell, Rick?
But, part of it is, I mean, let's face it. Part of it is, how well do you really know your business? I mean, really, how well do you know your competition? How well do you know your industry? Are you a topical business person, or do you really, really know the puts and takes of your industry and your business and your competition? I do. And as I said earlier, I carve out time to make sure that I do. I don't look at coaching just for, how do I get my next client? I look at the trends of coaching. I look at why people hire coaches, why people hire me.
Yeah.
Hell, I've already passed through, I told ChatGPT to, just be ugly with me, because you can do that in the settings where it's not your, Mr. Nice Guy.
That's a good tactical advice right there, because I think you do type in, whether you're using Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, you find that it just starts agreeing with you.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't think this is, oh yeah, right. You're right. It's totally sorry.
Sure.
You're right. Yeah. It's like, dude, don't just tell me I'm right.
So I asked it, I said, so I'm looking at hiring a business coach. Why should I hire RPC Leadership Associates? And I said, be objectively, brutally honest. And it gave me some good, and it gave me some things, some pros and cons.
Yeah.
Well, the pros, I'm already working, so that's good. The cons, most of them I could care less. One of them was, a small business, doesn't have a national footprint, whatever. Hell, I've coached on 6 of the 7 continents. So thanks to technology.
Antarctica's coming next, baby.
Yeah.
We're coming next.
I just haven't found an Antarctica, nothing
like
but
global
penguins.
warming happened for a few more years.
But at any rate, it's how do you how well do you really understand your business in the context of the competition, the markets, the trends that are coming out? Some of them are going to be fads, and some people are going to jump too early. But I think it all boils down to, I am very comfortable, as I got some really good advice early in my career, just get comfortable making good B+ decisions.
Yeah. That's good. I love how, looking inward, I think is so important in this process because, I've had people come to me like, we're going to start doing this AI automation, this. And it's like, I didn't hear about the problem that you're solving or how it's going to impact.
Right.
Just because we got to do some AI, we got to do some automation. And we've all been guilty of that, I think. And it's like, do we though at this second, or do we need to think about, a different way to solve this problem? Is there a way to use AI and automation,
Sure.
but maybe it's not right now, or maybe it's for something else? Knowing your business, looking inwards and saying, and then I think too, it's really important to understand what's happening in your industry. Like if you're a consultant or a coach, you need to know what's going on, what's changing, what's not changing, right? I think it was Jeff Bezos that said, he gets asked all the time, what's going to change over the next 10 years? And his answer is, I think what's more interesting is what's not going to change over the next 10 years.
So the basics of effective leadership hasn't changed in 150 years.
Why not 10,000 years?
Okay. Pick a number.
I didn't know if
it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Yeah, pick a number. It
Okay.
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read leadership, through the eyes of the Roman legion. I've read leadership through the eyes of, Civil War generals. I mean, pick a date. I don't care.
Yeah.
But the basics of, because it still boils down to how people follow you or why people follow you, and communications, respect, time management, I mean, these are all things that, have really been the foundation for effective leadership for centuries. The context in which we apply those basics changes almost every other week. That's the art of it. It's, you have to be able to apply what you know in the context of what it takes to be successful in a sustainable way.
So let's talk about leading yourself before we get to how do you lead your team and others more effectively.
Okay.
What does it mean to lead yourself, and why is that so important for a business owner or a founder?
It's important that you have a good sense of self, what your strengths are, what your blind spots are, because if you're fooling yourself, you're not fooling your team, or you're not fooling anybody that chooses to follow you. And so anytime I create a leadership institute, and I'm a part of 3 different ones currently, where I'm either part of the creator, I either help create it, or I'm a facilitator and I've created parts of it. And we always start off with, if you can't lead you, then you have no right to lead others. That's part of the opening monologue. And we spend time on doing assessments, looking at your value set, looking at your attitudes, looking at you, because that's what represents you. That's what influences others. And so if you don't have a sense of that, then all bets are off as far as I'm concerned.
And how do you get a sense of that?
Well, feedback, right? 360 feedback processes are a great way to help people really understand who they are. The assessments I use, part of it really gets into what I call under the hood. I get under the hood and look at how you think. It's independent of what you do, who you're married to, who you hang out with. It's just who you are. And so, and without getting into therapy or deep psychology or any of that, of which I am not qualified for either. But I know enough. That's why, and you've heard me say before, fundamentally, I'm in the attitude adjustment business. That attitude is the core of who you are. There is no personal or professional attitude. There's personal and professional behavior, but the attitude is the attitude. It's who you are. And anytime we get into a challenge with a leader, invariably we're going to get around to, why do you think the way you think?
And I think isn't part of this too, excuse me, isn't part of this too showing up and thinking about where you're spending your time too, how you're leading yourself. Because if you think about, I think there's the attitude, there's the how you show up, there's, what you bring to the table day in and day out in front of your team. But it's also like, hey, how are you, if you had to kind of coach and lead yourself, you'd be asking yourself, where are you spending your time? And is it on the things that matter? And are you
Right.
spending enough time with these people, or your team, or this, or clients, whatever it might be? And I think we'll get into some of this in a little bit when I pull up under the hood of my business a little bit, which I'm nervous to do. But I think about that. I recently have written down the top 3. Hey, Alex, these are the top 3 areas that you need to stay in throughout your week. And I don't know if maybe there's an opportunity to tweak these a little bit, but for me, it's in this order. Number 1 is developing and coaching, leading your team.
Okay.
That is, and we got a small team, but it's just that to me is like, if I can't do that, it doesn't lead me to the second one, which is making sure our clients are taken care of in a exceptional way, wowing them, right? Just next level results, service, all that stuff. And then third is new client acquisition. So that could be sales, marketing.
Okay.
So I think about that, and I'm like, well, if we don't have a team in position to win, and they're not coached and developed, and I've done this before, where you're like racing to get the next client, or even doing client stuff, and then you miss, and the team's like not developed, and now you got kind of a not so great team, or the culture's not there, right? You didn't set the mission, you didn't set the values, you didn't set what you're trying to accomplish.
Right.
And I don't know, as you hear that, maybe we'll just jump into the assessment now. What do you think about those 3? If I said here's how I'm kind of showing up every day and leading, and where I'm spending my time.
So where does the priority of Alex taking care of Alex fit?
Outside of the business?
Well, in those 3, where I would go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, where does Alex become a better version of Alex?
I think that's number 1.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think so.
But see, that gets us back to leading yourself before you lead a team.
True. Yeah, true. So I guess I was thinking like, hey, from a business standpoint, where are my areas of focus? Because in a way, if I'm coaching and developing my team, I'm being the best version of Alex as a leader. If I'm servicing my clients, I'm being the best version of Alex from a client service. If I'm getting new clients, I'm helping grow the business.
Sure.
But I also think about, am I staying fit? Am I being a good father? I mean, those things come first, if I'm being totally honest.
But you didn't put them first.
Right. Because I was thinking not Alex as a life. I was thinking as a business. And you're going to tell me that they're combined.
Well, there is no separation of church and state anymore. It's how we show up, right? Because in the old days of the 8 to 5, right, we could put on our game face, show up for the game, and then go home.
Right.
But that world doesn't exist anymore. Right? The two are, everything's blended.
Yeah.
So at the core of all of that is, who is Alex? Who is Rick? Who is, and that's why in some cases when I sit down with a new client and we really get into where the challenges are, we get into, I coached a sales director for a manufacturing firm for 6 months on staying fit, getting fit and staying fit. Another CEO of a nonprofit getting 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
I mean, these are the things that affect your ability to do the 3 things you talked about first.
Right. I guess I'd probably say then, taking care of myself from a health standpoint might be first. Because my first reaction after you said that was, it's being a dad.
Yeah.
Like being a father is the number 1.
Being present.
I would give up everything else. I'd push anything aside to be a great dad. That's my number 1. My kids are everything to me.
Sure.
Everything else is under that. But if I don't take care of myself, I can't be a great dad. If I'm not getting sleep, if I'm not healthy, if I'm injured, if I'm, not in the right mind space,
sure,
I'm not going to show up as a great dad. So I think it's like put your own, life jacket on first, or your own, air,
the mask,
mask on first, and then take care of the people around you. So I guess I'd probably say, does Alex show up as the best version of him every day?
Right.
And then is he being the best father that he can be? And then it goes to everything else. Then it's, business relationships, things like that.
And I think that's the takeaway for founders is, you're a founder, but you're also a parent, you're also a spouse, you're just who you are. And all of that factors into how you show up, how you lead you. And there's nothing wrong with being self-full, I call it.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the core of everything.
Yeah. Kind of all, if you're not there, it's like, there's no impact that you can make.
Well,
you're not
exactly.
there. You're just kind of not there. So I found too, just on a side note to go along with that, is that I feel like the older my kids get, the more I feel connected as a father, the more I feel like I need to really show up and set them up for success and teach them things.
Sure.
And I don't know, is that, because you obviously have kids too, right? Is that
Have grandkids.
You have grandkids, right? Rick, I won't say your age on air, but I will say that I was surprised when you told me your age before we went on, because I did one of those. I just kind of stared at him like, no way.
Mm-hmm.
So you're doing something right, obviously. But did you feel that too? Like, because I think, you always love your kids, right? It's
Sure.
it's an intense love that you don't feel, I think, in a lot of other ways. But I feel just more and more. I think if you asked me 5 years ago, I'm like, I got my own ambitions, this, and yes, I want to also be a great, take care of make sure my kids are set up. And now it's almost like, man, that kid thing is just my children.
Well, sure.
It's everything. It's everything.
As the kids get older, they have different interests. I mean, they all go through those stages of life, from 0 to 18 or 22, depending on when they decide to fly, and you have to evolve with, or you get disconnected, not connected.
Yeah.
And of course, as I've told many a parent, because we got married early, we had kids early, so our kids were all fully grown and out by the time we were late 40s. So
I'll be in the same spot.
And of course, a lot of people waiting until they were mid 30s to have kids. Totally fine. But I said, look, there's going to be a time from, let's say, 13 or 14 to 20 when basically they look at you and they just want your car keys and your credit card, and you're dumber than a box of rocks.
Don't tell me that, Rick. It doesn't have to be that way. Do you really think is that a little over dramatized?
Well, it's a little over dramatized.
Yeah.
But that is the stage they go through.
They just get more independent, right?
Well, it's that peer pressure, that socialization that they go through.
Yeah.
And so, but that's, it's funny because at one point, as I've written a couple of, the missing piece for entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders, and corporate leaders. And somebody suggested I should write the missing piece for parents. Just by virtue of the fact that, we kind of went through all of that. And, but, I didn't, I'm not going to, I'm just enjoying my grandkids and, let that be that.
I think the other side of it too is that you can't, and I think as an entrepreneur, you usually don't have this problem, but I think you have certain parents, especially the stay-at-home ones and things like that, where you can put so much into your kids and then they kind of go do their own thing at 17, 18, 19. And you want that. You want them to leave the nest and build their own life and still have a great relationship. And then they leave and it's kind of like, well, who am I now? And I think so. But I think as entrepreneurs, we don't really have that problem because we have a million things that we're trying to do. So,
well, and that's a blessing and a curse. Entrepreneurs are constantly busy. I mean, we know that. I'm not as busy as I was when we were in startup mode, but it's a different kind of busy.
Yeah.
It's the good kind of busy, better kind of busy, because you're really looking at, growing the business and the like. But you can be so busy that you forget who you are.
Right. Yeah. Some good reminders here. We talked about leading yourself. What about leading the team? What's the number one leadership mistake that business owners make that you see?
Feeling like they have to have all the answers.
What's an example of that? How does that show up?
Well, a leader who maybe because of their own experiences with leaders that they've had, now they're in a leadership position. And this is especially true for those that get promoted from within an organization. They're doers. Then all of a sudden, maybe they were the smartest engineer, maybe they were the best salesperson, maybe they were the best project manager. And now they have an opportunity to be promoted over a team of engineers, sales, project managers. But they still have that doer mindset, so they feel like they have to have the answers, like they did when they were the senior engineer, et cetera.
It's part of their identity almost, right?
Well, it is.
Yeah.
It is. And now it's part of that mental shift, that attitudinal shift that says, I am now successful through others.
That's it, Rick. That's really it. I made a mistake today as a leader. We had an employee that missed something. I won't say what it was, but it doesn't really matter. But they just made a minor mistake. But it's happened a couple different times now, right?
Sure.
And so we're kind of catching it. And I jumped in and I started having the conversation around, hey, it's happened a couple times now. what's going on? Just getting curious and a little bit of accountability there too.
Sure.
Because I want to know, hey, first understand what's going on, why,
Mhm.
what's causing it, where's the miscommunication? Because it may not be his fault, maybe the process, maybe me, maybe something else.
Sure.
I start going into it, and then I'm having a call with my other guy, and he's kind of the one who's really running the show and responsible for this person. He's leading this person.
Okay.
And I said, you know what, John, I made a mistake today. And I jumped in, and I should have let you jump in. That should have been your moment to jump in there.
Mhm.
And because that's a sign of a good culture, is it's not just the leader, the CEO,
Right.
It's other people are catching it. And he does a great job of like really, I think, living our values. And he'll even bring things up on calls like, hey, this is a good example of this, or
Sure.
vice versa. And I was like, damn it. I jumped in, and I thought I was being a good leader. And I thought,
Mhm.
I think I can jump in here, make an impact. I think this is an opportunity we need to stop and focus on. When in reality, just like you said, that's why it hit me. You're like, your value now is really how you're impacting the other people and how
Right.
they're showing up. It's
Right.
not you showing up with this set of expertise or skill set. It's how are you impacting the other people?
Mhm.
And that's really it. So I think part of it is it just stopping for a quick second and just saying, do I need to jump in here?
Right.
Or can I have somebody else, jump in there?
Or can I coach the person who
That's right.
ultimately is responsible for that?
And that's what we did. We had a conversation around, okay, you're going to have this conversation
Cool.
now. How are you going to have this conversation?
Mhm.
How are you going to start it? We did a little role play, right? And
Okay.
little framework around it. And it's
Mhm.
just like, okay, that was helpful,
Yeah.
because I think for me, it's easier, I go into coaching mode when someone comes to me, hey, what should we do with this and this? My
Mhm.
natural response back, even whether it's my kids or my team, is, well, what do you think we should do?
Right.
Or what
Right.
do you think? Think it through.
Mhm.
Like, let's talk about it.
Sure.
But when it comes to the culture now, it's not something I'm used to doing, which is like kind of being the keeper of the culture,
Sure.
jumping in versus saying, even though someone didn't ask me a question, they don't need to ask you a question for you
Mhm.
to pop in with the answer.
Right.
You can pop in with the answer when you just notice something's a little bit off. But could that be a moment to coach someone else to be able to pop in there
Yep.
and make an impact? And I think that's something I'm learning as I go through this process.
Sure. And that's, the tendency to do the quick fix because your to-do list or must-do list is still 20 strong.
Yeah.
So coaching requires patience. Leadership requires patience, especially
does.
the more distance that's created between you and where the actual work gets done.
Yeah.
But that's to me, that's the best part of the job is
Yeah.
when that works.
Yes.
It is nothing better.
It's cool, really cool to see, because
It
you see them develop back to the, how are you being the best version of yourself? You see them start to develop. But you're right. I'll be honest here. When I was having that conversation, part of my mind, and I shut it down pretty quick, but part of my mind went towards, do you have time to do all this coaching? And now I'm going to this whole, how are you going to have this conversation with this person? And I'm like
Mhm.
really trying to develop him as a better leader. And I started thinking, I got guests coming in, I got client call, I got this going on today. But then I was like, Alex, you have the time, make the time,
Mhm.
because this is one of your number one pillars on where you want to spend time.
Sure.
And if he doesn't get good at this, then you're always having to jump in. And so I think
Exactly.
we think sometimes as leaders, it's like, yeah, you got to be patient. It's slower in the beginning. It is, because you got to slow down and maybe coach or develop, or not just jump in with the answer right away or
Right.
solve the problem right away. Seems slower at first, but
Mhm.
now I don't got to do this a week from now, 2 weeks from now, and they're
Right.
auto-correcting as the
Yeah.
culture, and I can look back and go, nice job.
Mhm.
Handled that amazingly.
Sure.
So it's actually speeding us up later on. Is that how
It's
you see it too?
Well, it's an investment,
There you go.
right? When you make an investment,
That's a great way to put it.
it's an investment of time. When you keep popping in and doing it yourself, that's a spend of time. And the analogy to time is money is very much the same. You spend money, you consume what you bought. That's that. When you invest money, you get a future value and benefit that is greater than what you put in the first place. Same is true of time.
So going back to that story that I led with at the coffee shop, having this conversation with this founder, and him and like others, myself, all of us, we're trying to build a business that can run and grow even when we step away.
Sure.
Not that we'll step away forever, but just we want to not be the bottleneck in the business. And that's really a big mission that we're on with this show, is to help founders accomplish that.
Right.
How does a business owner build a business that can run and grow even when they step away?
Sure.
Because this seems to be, as I'm having that conversation in the coffee shop, I'm handling this, I'm jumping in. And it's like, that's not going to work. That's not going to get us there.
Mm-hmm. So what is the answer to what will get you there? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Well, scalability is really has two main parts. One is you hire the right people who can do the things that you used to do. And as you get further and further away from where the work is actually done, how are you creating systems and processes that allow expectations to be clear, concise, and consistent? That's it.
It's so tedious too when you dive into it, because you're like, oh, they missed this. I didn't have the process in place.
Well, and process improvement is, people get that wrong too. Now, the Deming Institute, Dr. Deming was the grandfather of the modern quality movement. So the Deming Institute is in his name.
The modern what?
Quality improvement.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Movement. Dr. Deming is the one that took his ideas to the U.S. car manufacturers, and they basically told them to go pound sand.
Mm.
This is in the early 80s. He then took his ideas to Japan. So when you think about the top quality car companies in the world, usually your top three are Honda, Toyota, and Nissan.
Tesla. No, I was kidding.
Whatever.
Okay,
possibly.
Now, I think now, but you're right. They dominated for decades.
But here's the kicker: is the top three car makers in the United States are still those three.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. They got plants all over the South.
Yeah.
But anyway,
better product.
So according to the Deming Institute, what percentage of business problems, are people versus process, do you think?
People versus process. And I'd say probably like 70% of it is process, I would guess.
Mm-hmm. According to the Deming Institute, it's 94%.
Is it really? Jeez. Yeah. I knew it'd be high.
But we blame people first.
Yeah.
Would you do that for?
Yeah.
Right? 99% of the workforce shows up to do a good job every day.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always that 1%.
Right.
But we'll just give them, it may be less than 1%, but whatever.
Yeah.
But if we believe that 99% of the workforce shows up to do a great job, anytime something went sideways as a corporate leader, first person I spoke with was that person's manager. Right? Training, processes, equipment, what failed? Because something in the process failed. Something in the system failed. Because Johnny and Susie didn't show up today to screw up. They showed up to do a good job. Something else.
What if you have things that are kind of like, we had this actually happen recently where it wasn't necessarily exactly part of the process, but it's a read that someone needed to make and make a judgment call or have, a little bit of creativity around
Well,
this.
that's the second part of the mistake that people make in process improvement.
Okay.
They spend a lot of time to get it all documented.
Yeah.
And, but they go at it with the wrong assumption. So how I characterize it is the best process documented fully on the best day works 80% of the time.
Hmm.
It's the 80-20 rule.
Okay.
The other 20% is what the question you just asked. People still have to understand the intent behind it, the context, right? Because if you over proceduralize the world, then context goes out the window. And therein lies one of the first mistakes that people are making with AI.
Mm.
They're trying to automate without context, and you can't do that, not successfully.
Yeah, because I think sometimes you got to be able to, yes, we have the process, but you also want people that can think outside the process with maybe there's new, hey, usually we do it this way, but I think given this specific example,
right,
maybe I should pause on this one, maybe ask a question or think of another way to do it because it's a little bit of a different context.
And here's where leaders of any business have to look at their business as a system. Because the other mistake that people make is sales is over here improving their process, but then it creates problems over here in engineering. And then they're fine-tuning their process and it creates problems for operations.
Yeah.
Right. So part of a leader's role is to look at their business systemically, not just procedurally.
Who's the best leader that you've ever been around?
Um, when I was first promoted to area vice president, I'm sorry, director of engineering, the area vice president that I worked for in the West. So my territory was Chicago to Dallas, out to the West Coast. So I had
everywhere.
yeah,
Jesus Christ.
everything west of the Mississippi,
Yeah.
basically.
No, I'm just kidding.
3 time zones.
Yeah, that's a big area.
And design engineers, systems engineers, data product managers, the whole bit. But the area vice president I worked for, Barbara Beck, was probably the best leader I've worked for.
Why?
She just let me do my job and trusted me to do it. But when I had a question or I made a mistake or something went sideways, we treated it as a coachable moment, not as a blame game.
So trusting someone to do their job, that seems easy, Rick. I can trust somebody to go do the job. What did she do specifically? What that stuck in your mind?
It's not what she did, it's what she didn't do. She didn't get in my knickers, for every little thing. She didn't micromanage. She didn't, she hired me. So obviously she, she had to trust that she made a good decision, not just that I was making good decisions. When you think about it, the last corporate job I had, I worked for a executive vice president who also hired me, but it was in healthcare. Now, keep in mind, I turned 26 years of telecom experience, and my last corporate job was in healthcare. So I made the transition of industries at an executive level. And so I finally had to call my boss at this healthcare company, and I was in Chicago. He was based in Atlanta. And I had to ask him, do you trust me to do my job? Now, keep in mind, he hired me and he actually told the recruiter, once he found my resume, he told the recruiter to stop looking. So, he knew I was the guy.
And why were you asking him if he trusted you?
Because he was micromanaging me. Because he knew I had the credentials, but he didn't fully trust that I was doing what I was doing. Now, here's a guy that, and he'll probably never hear this, but here's a guy that had a Harvard MBA that asked me why I was creating a vision for my organization.
Wow.
So it was that kind of stuff and finally I just had to call him out. And he said, "Oh, absolutely. I definitely trust you." And I said, "Then stop micromanaging me." And for the next year, he didn't. Wow. And for the next year, we kicked ass and grew faster than I thought we would.
Was he a good leader still, or he just kind of left you alone from that standpoint?
Well, yeah, he was, he got the memo. Right. I think he's still down to his core was about half leader, half manager. So he had the soft skills, but he liked to manage as well, liked to make sure things were just right. So,
and what does that come down to? If we go a little bit deeper, if we go a layer deeper, because a lot of founders, and I want to ask you this, like how do you get past I need to start trusting my team more. I need to start putting, giving them responsibility or letting them make the impact, not having it all fall on me. How do you work through that process? And what's going on inside a business owner's mind that they feel like they need to be in control or micromanaging?
Part of, and I'll go quickly or briefly to a sports analogy. You ever wondered why superstar athletes don't make very good coaches?
Yeah, that's true, right? Because they're just the A players.
Because they're what they know how to do is so deeply embedded in their subconscious that it's automatic. But now you've got to teach others. Now you've got to coach others to do what you do. And that's very difficult to do because, the first time somebody asked me, and it was embarrassing, I was a director and I was facilitating a session at a upcoming manager program, future managers. And one of them asked me, "So what makes you good at what you do?" And I stared at him and I swear to God, I couldn't answer the question. So it was one of those aha moments where my own self-awareness, I just knew I was good at what I do, but I never stopped to look in the mirror and say, why are you as good as you say you are?
Mm-hmm.
But that, I fixed that. Now I know why and how and the like, because over my career, I've been asked that many more times. And now I have a good answer. Now I can say, here's what you do. But that's part of it is founders get so embedded in all the things that they know how to do because it's their baby that they struggle with, how do I share that? How do I teach that to somebody else who doesn't love this business as much as I do?
Mm.
And never will. And that's okay. Unless they buy the business from you, they never will. But that's the hard part is trusting somebody to do it well without saying, but they're not doing it the way I did it. I said, well, they're not gonna either.
Right. And you can't scale a business if you have that mentality because, I think about if someone's doing content for clients, could I jump in and do it better because I have more experience or more, skill set around this? Sure. But then what am I going to do every single client's content? Like it's not going to scale. It's not going to work. Right. I'm going to be drowning in client stuff and then I can't do the other stuff I need to do. So it's like, you have to at some point give a little bit, knowing, maybe you lose a little, you dilute a little bit.
Right.
But eventually over time, it's really good. It's good work.
But here's the thing is, okay, so I've been the guy that a fast growing company, my second job out of Sprint, or second job that I, after Sprint, fast growing entrepreneurial company, investment bank said, we'll invest, but you have to hire an operations executive who knows how to scale, because the founder didn't. And nobody around the executive room at the time knew how. So I was the guy that was hired. And the hard part was convincing this guy not only that, hey, I could take on the business, no big deal. But in his mind, it was, now what do I do? Now what's my job? Right? If I'm handing over the day-to-day operations to this guy, I made my bones by, rolling up my sleeves and getting this business to, almost $30 million. Now what do I do now that this kid comes in and, basically is doing all the things to scale the business? Mm-hmm. Because he learned and he shared with me, he said, Rick, going from 2 to 10 is a whole lot different than going from 20 to 100.
Oh, for sure.
Right? I said, yeah, I know. Now I just come from managing $1.5 billion business unit for Sprint. Mm. So my learning was, how do I downscale my thinking to do this? But it worked out. So
when you say, that founder didn't know how to scale the business, what are the top 2 or 3 skill sets that a business owner needs to be able to scale? And what did this guy or gal not have? I think it was a guy. What did he not have that, you or somebody else could step in and say, I know how to scale a business? Yeah.
He had no process thinking, no systems thinking.
Couldn't he have learned it?
Yeah, but
just wasn't natural for him.
No, and I could go into some personal characteristics.
Let's air it out on the Founder Talk podcast. No, I'm kidding. So, because don't you think there's also like, hey, where are you best suited on this team? Going back to a sports analogy, is like, maybe you're not the point guard, and that's okay. Like maybe you're a shooting guard, or you transition.
Well, Dennis Rodman on the Bulls.
Yeah.
Right. He had a very specific role.
Yeah. Terrorized.
Yeah. Own the basket, own the bucket, seriously. Underneath the bucket. Right. Yeah. I mean, that was his job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So founders, this gets us all the way back to knowing yourself, right? Knowing what your strengths and what your blind spots are, because eventually those blind spots are going to be found as you scale. Right. If you're not a systems guy or gal, that's okay. That just means you hire people that can do that, and trust that you've hired the right kind of people to do the right kind of roles. Now, that's where I spend a lot of time. What do we need? What does the business need? Right? What kind of people do we need? The 6 directors I had at Sprint, I went through 11 to get those 6. The 5 that didn't make the cut are not bad people, not bad directors. They were staff directors, not field directors.
Mm.
And I needed field directors to run to grow a business from 800 million to $1.5 billion, covering 19 states, 640 people. I mean, my management team alone was 50 people.
That's wild.
So, but I needed the right 6 directors as direct reports that I could almost trust to be mini CEOs.
So you had 6 direct reports?
I had 6 directors.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Direct
Because
reports.
you can't manage 50 different people, right? I mean,
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
43 managers, 6 directors, and
Wow.
myself. That was the leadership team.
That's a good squad.
Yep.
I think when you talk about all this, it makes you kind of appreciate, and even, I mean, that's a great example there, but even if you take it a few levels up, like an Amazon, like Jeff Bezos,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, regardless of what you think about him, look what he did. He took a company from his garage, shipping books and shit on the internet back when the internet, people didn't even believe in that shit. They were like, the internet's a fad,
Mm-hmm.
And then he turned into this billions of dollars empire with, I think, one of the hardest businesses to run because of the logistics and the overhead and
Sure.
I mean, how complex that business is with all the different moving parts and just the warehouses and the shipping and the drivers and the technology behind it. And of course, they got a bunch of different business units now, but he had to have been really good, right?
Well, he had a CIO who was very good at helping him scale the business. And I happen to know that because the CIO was one of my former roommates at West Point.
Really?
Yep.
But what skill sets do you think Jeff Bezos had or have that allowed him to build this multi-billion-dollar company?
He had a vision, and he was convicted to that vision.
He was.
And he didn't spend a lot of time with the mechanics of how to make that vision work. He brought in people that could do that. Now, in the early days, he had to do a lot of it himself. But at some point, he looked out and said, hey, we can do this beyond books, right? And at that point, he had to have started bringing people on and technology, right? Because technology definitely enabled him, much like the folks that do it right are going to be able to leverage AI to, take on some of the tasks that, people is undervaluing people that are doing those tasks.
Mm. Now, how much do you think he sacrificed showing up as the best version of him, though, to build a business like that?
Right. Sacrificed a lot.
I would think almost all of it.
Yeah.
Seems like.
I mean, his social life was not important to him.
Right. So it's like sometimes when we look at these people who sometimes we look up to, I wouldn't say I look up to these people, but you can admire certain things that they've built, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, you look at, whether it's the Michael Jordans or the Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or who, just name it.
Mm-hmm.
We almost forget that they just kind of sacrificed everything or a lot of things except for this one thing that they were doing.
Sure.
And it's always a balance for me of like, I want to build this amazing company, not probably billions of dollars worth, but I want to build an amazing company and create opportunities and have a great life.
Right.
But I also don't want to miss, as my friend Matt says, I don't want to miss the moments.
Sure.
I want to be present. I don't want to be drowning. You know what I mean? It's like always that kind of that.
I know exactly what you mean. And as a matter of fact, I read the first book, the guy that founded Banana Ball, his first book. Early on in the book, he makes a point that I think has stuck with me ever since I read it, but it really resonates as I reflect back. He said, business success is just a series of trade-offs. Which ones are you willing to make? Which ones are you willing not to make?
That's a good way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
It really is when you think about it.
Because you can't have it all.
Yeah.
When I was in the military, my wife knew, my kids knew that, on any given day, what Uncle Sam has me do is the priority. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just the way it goes.
Yeah, that's so
but
true.
in the long run, family, faith, and friends still resonates. But on any given day, you're right. If I'm deployed or I'm in the field doing training, whatever the case may be, that's that. If I'm traveling for work, it's when the kids were in high school, I traveled 40 weeks a year for 7 years in a row.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of travel. How did you justify that in your mind?
See, the kids were of an age where, again, during the week they hung out with their own friends,
Okay.
played their activities, whatever.
Right. So you wouldn't have done
If
it if
I
they were
was
9
home-
and 12.
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
But when they were 9 or 12, I was in the military, so
Mm,
I had to do it
Right.
regardless. But as long as I was home on the weekends, the kids had we had our own one-on-one things that we like to do.
Mm.
So as long as I was there for the weekends, but during the week, they're in middle school, high school,
hmm
they have their own things going
Right.
on. So no big deal.
If I had your kids sitting here and I said, and you're out of the room, and I said, tell me about your dad, how he showed up as a father, as a leader, what do you think they'd say?
Well, I don't know what they would say, but I can tell you that when MySpace was first created and they all created an account, there's a space where you can put your hero. All three put me.
I can tell that there's
Yeah.
an emotion there. Yeah. That's
Yep.
really cool.
Yep. So
Wow.
what they would say about me now, I don't know, but I know at one point.
I think though. I think you know what they'd say now.
All my kids are in their 40s. So they all, they have families.
Right.
And so, we have a very different relationship.
Right.
I was just with two of them and their spouses over the weekend. We're all military veterans. So,
That's cool.
yeah.
What branches?
So I was Army. My father-in-law was Air Force, and he lives local here as well. My oldest and youngest are Army, and my middle is Navy.
Wow. My brother's in the Air Force.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. He's getting ready to retire this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's big. And he's like 42.
Well, yeah,
So he'll
you
do
can
other
that.
stuff, obviously. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, retire with a pension, that gives you,
That's
some
exactly
play
right.
money to figure out what you want to do next.
Mm-hmm.
So, but, so yeah, that, it's a different kind of relationship when your kids are adults.
Yeah. Yeah. I think about that a lot. I hate to use the word legacy because it just doesn't really, I don't know. I think it's more about the present and what you're doing and the impact I think that you make. But I think about how would my kids say that I showed up for these periods
Mm-hmm.
in time? And I think about that more than I do like, how am I going to be remembered as an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I think to be realistic, and I tell younger parents that if your kid hasn't said, I hate you at least once, you're not doing your job.
by age 16, let's say.
Well,
right? Okay.
well, I think some of my grandkids might have popped it off, before 10,
Yeah.
but nonetheless, I mean, but we're getting a little off topic, but that is one of your leadership roles,
Yeah.
right? As a parent. And, it's amazing to me how throughout my career, what has worked on a 55-year-old also worked on a 15-year-old
Mm,
and vice versa,
that's so
believe it
true.
or not.
That's
But-
so true.
It proves that people are people, and people, you treat them as people, not as numbers, not as cogs, and they'll respond whether you're 15 or 55.
Mm, that's so true. So I when I look at, I've interviewed a lot of people. I feel like I should write a book on just taking all the insights I've gathered from founders like yourself
Mm-hmm.
and put it into a book and just be like, I interviewed 300, by the time I get up there, because we're over 100 now.
Oh, wow.
So
Congratulations.
it's like, thank you. Yeah. It's, I think the 100th episode releases soon. Yeah. Next couple weeks. But what I notice is that the ones that are really doing it, the ones that are really have grown a business, have really stepped into the leadership role, they do, like you mentioned earlier, have a vision, mission.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like clear too. It's like, and they have who they are as a company.
Right.
And I talk to other business owners that are kind of struggling, and you can just tell they don't know who they are.
Right.
They don't have the mission. They don't have like, man, if you ask your own team, like, who are you guys? What are your top 3 pillars? This is what they'd say.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to ask you, what goes into a good mission, vision, core 3 pillars of who you are? Like, how do you come up with that? We had a guy named Jody on the episode who I took a lot of inspiration from.
Mm-hmm.
And he just said he had this inflection moment, at 50. And he was like, our company's average. We're kind of losing people. We're not really growing this like we'd like to. And he said he just brought it back. And he had a business coach too that I think helps,
Sure it does.
And then he came up with this just ultimate clarity in terms of who they are, where they want to go. And then the company ended up doubling and then tripling. And then, now he's in a spot where he can remove himself from the business and it still runs. Go
Sure.
back and check out that episode, by the way, Jody. You'll see it in the thumbnail. How do you create something like that? Because I think a lot of founders listening want to have that type of inspired culture. That
Right.
How do you do it?
One of the first questions I ask is when that becomes evident that it's a need, tell me why you started the business.
Let's go with mine because we said we'll do some.
Yeah. Why did you start the business?
Podcast. So let's use Podcast Builders. So I got Impacts Marketing. I've been running that for 6 years. We got the podcast, and then we got Podcast Builders. Podcast Builders is 3 months old, so it's newer. Why did I start it? Because podcasting made such a big impact on me that I knew I learned. I didn't set out to build this business. I just maybe a year and a half, 2 years in, it's like podcasting has changed my life. Become a client acquisition asset. It's built this amazing local community that I didn't have before because I started virtually during the middle of COVID is when I started my business. I've made awesome friends with it. I really enjoy it. I found a format that kind of works for almost everyone because it's just conversational.
Sure.
I was like, I want to share this with, and I also think I also benefited from it early on a decade or so ago when I would listen to whether it's YouTube videos, podcasts.
Sure.
I would get to extract insights and knowledge from people that I never would have had access to before. So it was like I learned a lot from it. And I'd talk to people and they'd say, podcasting, listening to the show changed my life. And so for that reason, it was like really a deep thing for me. And I was like, we got the studio. I love this format. I love what it's done for me personally in my business and how it's impacted other people. Why don't we go do this for other people?
Right.
Why don't we got the infrastructure, we got the process, we got the equipment. Why do we not take this and scale this to other people?
Okay.
And that's how I started. I don't know if that's just the truth.
The answer is the answer.
Yeah.
How does the world benefit from that then?
The world benefits because in 2 ways. One, the people listening to these conversations can have this life-changing moment. They can just decide. Now they got to take action. They got to do their thing, right?
Sure.
But they can in a split section listen to you say something that really triggers something, or maybe I said something about the kids stuff, and it makes them go, "Gosh, I need to make a change there. Or this is something I could do to better my life or my kids or my business or whatever it is."
Sure.
There's the people receiving the message on one side. On the other side, you got these business owners and founders who are like, how do I generate more leads and opportunities and clients? And it's like, well, what if you could just build relationships? What if you could have conversations with potential clients and you don't need to worry about an algorithm or something changing with LinkedIn or Instagram, or you could just say, I'm going to sit across from awesome people that are also potential clients. And not everyone's going to turn into a client, but maybe they know someone that does.
Sure.
But over time, this is going to be a predictable asset that we have in the business that generates revenue.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is your vision would be to create helping business leaders create life-changing moments to make the world a better place.
Well, damn, Rick, how much do I owe you? Did you guys hear how amazing that sounded? Thank God we're recording this. And see, this is exactly what I'm talking about. What you just said so eloquently that I'm going to steal, if you don't mind.
Oh, it's all
because
yours.
Our mission is something similar, but it didn't sound as cool as that.
Well, but what I gave was a vision, right? A vision is aspirational. Okay. You don't measure visions. Mine is making leadership a way of life, right? That's our vision. Now, our mission is a little bit more tangible, and this says we work with these segments to help them, run better, more sustainable businesses, create desired results on their terms, those kinds of things. So the mission and vision go hand in hand. One is aspirational. One is a little bit more mechanical and tangible. And then, of course, the strategy is the third piece of the triad of strategic thinking. And here's how we're going to do it.
So the vision really never changes for the most part. Would the mission change then? Do you need to be specific and say?
I would argue in today's world, your strategy is going to change every year to 18 months.
Right.
Your mission, probably depending on which way the wind blows in your industry, is going to change maybe every 3 to 5 years. And your vision, depending on whether or not it's, how aspirational it really is, could stand the test of time over 15, 20 years.
Right.
But here's how it all connects. We execute our strategy to achieve our mission to become our vision. And that's how all three. If you can't create that narrative as a founder or as a business owner, keep working or hire a business coach that can help you get there.
And what if you're listening to this and you're like, I got a successful business, maybe it's 7 to 8 figures. I don't feel like we have a strong vision or mission. I mean, really, guys, don't kid yourself, right? People got on their website and stuff, but like really have something. If I go to the way I judge it is like, if I go to your employees and I sit them down and say, what's the mission? What's the vision? Do they light up and go, we're trying to change the industry. We're trying to impact, or do they go, I don't really know. I think we're trying to grow. That's why I heard from someone the other day, like, I know we're trying to grow. It's like, man, that sounds sad.
You and every other business on the planet.
Who isn't trying to grow? And like, how do you get behind that? It's not even meaningful.
But then, I mean, the broader conversation then goes to, what is your unique value proposition? What are people saying about your culture 3 years from now? Those kinds of questions that really cause you to really think about if that is how you want people talking about, Memorial Day weekend 2030, then what decisions do you make today to make that happen?
That's really good. But do you have to have a strong mission, vision, core values to be a successful company? Because you do see a lot of these companies that are doing $20 million a year, and it just doesn't.
How do you measure success?
Revenue, I guess they'd say.
Well, if that's all that matters, then that's all that matters.
Eventually, do you think that train runs out of track?
Well, here's the thing. So I was working early on in the business. I was working with a software developer who was creating a business, and she said, "Rick, I don't need a vision." Okay, cool.
Cool. Let me show you why you do that.
Yeah. So then she hired her first employee, and one of the first words out of the employee is, "Where are you taking this?" So she called me up and said, "Rick, I think I need a vision." So, and I'll give you another example. So in the nonprofit space, I was the board chair of Literacy to Page for 8 years. I was on the board for 8 years. I was the board chair for 6. One of the first things I did when I joined the board was help them create a strategic plan. And they had a mission, no vision. So I said, we need a vision. And of course I got the, why, we already have a mission, et cetera. Well, once we started applying for grants with a vision and a mission, our success rate went up. Because not only did people know what we did, they knew where we were going. And that's the key. And people, especially today's workforce, they want to know, where is this thing going? What do we stand for?
Right.
It's not just what we do to make money. What do we stand for? And that's becoming more and more important to the workforce today. Wow. And a vision, mission, strategy, that narrative of we execute our strategy to achieve our mission to become our vision. I guarantee you there's not an employee in the world that won't respond to that that's worth anything, worth keeping.
I think it's more fun to build a business when you have all that stuff too, because it just kind of aligns you day to day. You can rally around things. It gets you excited.
Sure.
You're kind of like, I don't know, there's something about that. Because I've done it both ways. I've done it where you have no mission, no vision. It's just like trying to survive, right? In the early days. And then now it's like you're being more intentional. You do have the vision, the mission, the values, who we want to be as a company, those types of things.
And that's the whole premise of how we run our coaching practice is business alignment. So we go all the way from vision all the way down to desired results. So we go through all that mechanical that strategy, then the structure, the people, process, and tools that connect to the strategy. Because you can't execute a new strategy on an old structure. Just not going to work. You can't have new behavior on old thinking. Just won't work. It's not sustainable. And so we built our business alignment model to do just that. And so that's where, AI fits into the tools, but when you pull AI out or any sort of technology out and misplace it within the alignment of the business, the systemic alignment of the business, you get the Salesforce situation.
Where's your leadership weakness? If I was going to put you in a company with 500 people, let's say, or 20 people, and I said, Rick, you're going to struggle in one area as a leader, where's it going to be?
Patience. I've been a hard charger all my life. I'm the oldest of 7 kids.
Wow.
I had 37 mailing addresses by the time I was 40 years old.
Wow.
So, my whole life has been running and gunning, or at least up until 40, was just running and gunning. And so it's just that patience.
How does that show up from a leadership standpoint, though?
Well, not asking questions when you should be asking questions, making assumptions that aren't valid, that aren't checked, making quick decisions too quick without looking at the facts. I could go on and on and on because I've made all of these
Right.
made all these mistakes. I don't make them now because when I was 41 or so, somebody came up to me and said, Rick, I was a area vice president at Sprint. Said, people are afraid of you. You're not approachable. Now, I had very high standards, but my thought was in order to achieve high standards, I had to be a bit of an asshole. And turns out that wasn't true, but that feedback helped me kind of realign and say, okay, I can still have high standards, but I can be a little bit more approachable. So,
yeah, I think it's a good balance because we don't want to be necessarily like I'm the most likable guy. Everyone's my best friend. You don't need to be that, and you don't want to be that probably.
No, you don't.
But you also don't want to be the person that's like, I feel like I can't give that person feedback or talk to them because they're just going to be so hard charging.
Sure.
So you had to find that balance. Yeah. But you'd still say that'd be a spot you'd keep an eye on if
I were back in the leadership role, I would have to really watch that.
Right.
And even as a coach, I have to watch that.
Sure.
I had a client recently ask me, so you ask a lot of questions. How many of those questions do you already know the answer? Yeah, probably about 90%. But that's not the point. The point of a coach is the solution has to come out of the client's mouth, not mine. Even though I know the answer. That's the patience part, right?
Because they got to work through the process.
They got to work through their process, and sometimes it takes me a dozen questions to get to a point where I could have just told you, here's what you got to do, and I'd be right, but that's not the point.
The outcome wouldn't be what you want.
Nope.
Right.
It's got to come out of the client's mouth.
Rick, this has been a fantastic conversation. I appreciate you joining me again for technically round 2.
Always a pleasure.
But actually round 3. Where can people find you, connect with you, learn more about what you guys do? Who do you typically work with?
So we work with nonprofit leaders, corporate leadership teams, business leaders, small business leaders, professionals, the architects, the attorneys, et cetera. But the bottom line, it's not a demographic that I work with. I work with a psychographic. Look, I've worked with the largest computer company on the planet, and I've worked with solopreneurs similar to myself. The common denominator across all our clients is they're running a good business. They want to run a great business. And their attitude is such that I need a partner to help me get there. Their ego is checked at the door. They know, but they're running a good business, and that's cool. And they're all coachable, and that's the point. They're all coachable. Yep. So rpcleadershipassociates.com, everything you ever wanted to know about our business model, who I am. I have a whole page on just my own story, so that people know that when we interview each other, we're both interviewing each other. Right. So only once in 18 years has anybody asked me if I'm an accredited coach, because I'm not. Yeah. I'm not an accredited coach. I don't carry any certifications or anything. But if you're the CEO of a business, you just want to know that I've walked in your shoes and that I've led successfully in that space one way or the other.
Yeah.
And so that's why I tell the story, because that's my credentials.
That's right.
That and the fact that we've now been doing it for 18 years and counting.
Well, I don't have any certificates in marketing or a bachelor's degree in marketing science of gender. It's like, no, dude, I just lived it. I've done it, gotten the results.
And there you have it. You can tell stories of successes. You can tell stories of learnings.
Yep.
From mistakes. I mean, that's
right.
But do it in a way that, as a dean, I've taught in 2 different universities in their MBA programs. But when I started at Aurora University, it really struck me. He said, Rick, there's a lot of smart people out there. There's very few that can impart that knowledge in a classroom setting. And that's what we were talking about earlier, is you've got to be able to impart that knowledge in order to be a successful leader, successful coach, successful professor. If you can't impart the knowledge that you've gained, who cares?
Love that. And we said at the end we were going to go through a little bit of my business and some examples, but I think we sprinkled that along throughout the episode.
We
so I
hit
think
a couple of nuggets. I gave you a vision.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and I'm stealing that shit. That's for sure. So again, I appreciate you being here, Rick. Thanks so much for coming back. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Really appreciate you guys out there. You're making this show what it is, and we'll see you on the next one.